So today is Friday, January 19th, and you should have this paper called Sharing a Set Equally Experience in front of you. Today we are going to continue using some Play-Doh. So right now I want you to pause the video and go get yourself a can of Play-Doh to use at your seat with your office around you. So you are allowed to use the Play-Doh while you're doing this assignment, just as long as you have your record sheet completed when you're finished. Your record sheet is going to be turned in when you're finished, just to make sure that you're accountable for all the information. Okay? So remember, when we're using the Play-Doh, we want to use it to model what's happening in our story. So I've already taken my Play-Doh out, and I'm not even going to use the whole amount. I'm just going to kind of split it in half, because otherwise it's just too much to use underneath the camera. I'm going to split it in half, and I'm going to put half of it away. So this is going to represent my whole amount that I'm talking about today. Alright, so I think we're ready to get started. Remember, again, this is activity 16 called Sharing a Set Equally Experience. Sherry has 1/2 foot of ribbon. She wants to cut the ribbon equally into 3 pieces. What will be the length and feet of each piece of ribbon? So right now what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to read again, but I want to think about pieces of information that would be important. Sherry has 1/2 foot of ribbon. She wants to cut the ribbon equally into 3 pieces. What will the length and feet of each piece of ribbon? Alright, so if I summarize this and I think about not even using numbers, what I think about is Sherry having some ribbon. She's going to cut it equally, and we want to know, well, what will be the length of each piece? So if I take my pencil now and I go back and I think about what numbers will help me find the length of each piece, I'm first going to start with, what does she have? She has 1/2 foot of ribbon. So 1/2 foot is going to represent our total. And I'm going to label that total. She wants to cut the ribbon equally into 3 pieces. So right now, the words that stick out to me are cut, because when I think about cut, I think about dividing. I also see the word equally, which goes along with equal or unequal pieces. We know when we have equal pieces, there's only 2 options, multiply or divide. And how are we going to cut it equally? Into 3 pieces. So we want to know the length of each piece of ribbon. So instead of us using fraction strips, we're going to use the dough. We're going to use the Play-Doh. So I'm going to cross that out. And this is where I'm going to do my thinking. So right now I'm going to put my Play-Doh in front of me, and I'm thinking about, what would ribbon look like? Well, ribbon would probably look like me rolling this into something that looks very long and skinny. And this would represent a whole piece of ribbon. I'm going to kind of mash it out so it looks a little more flat, like ribbon would. Okay? And you can do the same. If you need more time, just pause your video, but remember, you're only going to have a set amount of time to do this assignment. So this right here represents a whole foot. But I don't have a whole foot, because when I go back and look at my total, I only have 1/2 of a foot. So what I need to do right now is look at my ribbon and think about, where is 1/2? So I'm going to cut that, or I'm going to pinch it apart right now. Pinch that apart. So I have 1/2 here and 1/2 here. 2 halves. Now I'm only going to look at this piece because this is what I have. And I want to cut this piece, this half ribbon, into 3 equal pieces. So right now I'm going to take my pencil or my pen and I'm just going to kind of cut this into 3 pieces. Piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. Now the problem is, whenever I cut a fraction, I have to think in terms of the entire whole. Remember, this was only half of my whole, and I wanted the whole foot. So whenever we label, we have to think in terms of the whole foot. So that means this unused half over here, I have to cut it too. 1, 2, 3. And so when I think about what is each piece worth, we want to think about the whole model, and that's 1 part of this whole model. That would be 1 part of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal pieces. So my answer is going to be 1/6 of the whole ribbon, or of the whole foot. So I'm going to take my Play-Doh. I'm actually done with it for now. I'm going to stack it over here to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and write this out. 1/6 of a foot of ribbon. That's what we're talking about. Might need to just kind of roll that away. Okay? So now comes our picture. So we used our Play-Doh to, instead of fraction strips, to kind of act it out. Now we're going to draw a representation. And so we're going to start with, what is our total? What is it that we have? Well, Sherry has a ribbon. Just like we started with our whole length of Play-Doh. But she really doesn't have a whole foot. She only has half of a foot. So at this point, I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to cut it into a half. This is 1/2, this makes 2 halves. The whole thing equals 1 foot of ribbon. Now that I have that, I want to cut this ribbon equally into 3 pieces, and remember, it's only half that I have, so really I'm just looking at this half piece, and I'm going to cut it equally into 3 pieces. So taking my pencil, I'm going to cut this into 3 pieces. But when I uncover, I notice that half of my model is divided, but the other half is not. And whenever we're labeling or thinking about fractions, we want equal pieces throughout the whole entire thing. So that means I have to cut this piece into thirds as well. So each piece is worth 1 part. 1 part of the whole foot. And if I go back and I label that, and I think about what part of the entire foot is this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the entire foot. And I'm going to go ahead and erase that right here. That's kind of confusing to look at. All right. So now that yours looks like mine, and remember, if I go too fast, you can go back and you can pause and catch up. We're going to look at our action. Our action that we're talking about today is sharing. Sharing equally. Sharing a set equally. And the operation that we use to be able to find that answer is dividing. So whenever we divide, we always start with our total. It's always total divided by each or group to get the amount. that we're looking for. And so for this, we know that we have our total, which represents 1/2 foot. We're dividing that into 3 groups. And the answer will tell us each. And so what is each piece worth? In terms of the whole thing, it's 1/6 of a whole. Okay? Great. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and I'll see you back for the back side.